Hello everyone. Hi, my name's Arsh. It's Sunday the 17th of April of 2016. Hope you're all well. I'm online tonight with a very good friend and business partner to the name of Neil McCoy Ward. Neil, are you online?
Hi Arsh, yep, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks for joining us. Right, okay, we've got quite a lot of people online tonight. Quite a lot of names that I don't recognise. So I'm hoping that we've got a lot of new people who's really interested in this strategy that we're going to be talking about. So just before we start, one thing that we always do at the start of a webinar, we try and just check out to make sure that everyone can hear us nice and clearly and loudly. So we've got Derek who's online. If you wouldn't mind, if you can say yes that you can hear us, and that'd be great. Okay, brilliant. So everyone's saying yeah, they can hear us nice and loudly and clear. Brilliant. Okay. So tonight we're going to be online for approximately 60 minutes, and we've got a lot of content to cover within that period. So we're going to move straight on. We're going to leave the introductions quite short, and we're going to get straight into the content, showing you how you can actually make rent to rent a real property strategy for you, and how you can make it so that you're generating a decent cash flow per property per calendar month. So in 60 minutes, you're going to possess the skills to find landlords who are interested in the easy life, negotiate a win-win scenario and take on their properties so that you can easily cash flow between £500 to £1,000 per month per property, and how to turn it into a cash generating business. Uh, okay, so, and then finally, how to find your way to financial freedom. So some persons that just asked, Anya's just asked that she's on a webinar last week. Some of the slides are the same. Some of the slides are the same. We've changed it up a bit for tonight. With rent to rent, a lot a lot of content varies. So we're going to try and chop up the content a bit. So it'd be good for you to stay online. So a little introduction. My name's Arsh Ellahi, and I run a group of 12 property companies with my business partner, Aki Ellahi. Together we're landlords and letting agents, been letting property since 1973, which isn't correct because I wasn't born until 1980. We've been letting, we've got well in excess of 500 tenants on benefits. And here's the beauty is that we've got a 100% rent collection record and very high 98% occupancy rate. So if you've never met me, I'm on the left-hand side, and there's my brother on the right. A couple of things that I'm involved in. I talk about property, so I'm a property speaker. I'm an author of a Amazon bestseller book, which is called Boom, Bust and Back Again. I'm a property trainer. I'm a landlord. I'm an investor. I'm a franchisor of a letting agency, and I was on a program called Britain's Benefit Tenants in March 2015. So that's enough about me. So I'm going to I'm going to pass you over to a person called Neil McCoy Ward, who's going to tell you briefly a little bit about who he is and what he does.
Yep, thanks Arsh. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks Arsh for having me on again. Um, I started in property back in 2005 now, so this is my 11th year. And like many people, I started off quite small with flats and single lets, and then quickly moved into HMOs where I saw there was a lot more profit. A little bit more risk, but a lot more profit, so it makes it a lot more worth it. And then I went into rent to rent, which is what we're going to talk about tonight. And that's really what gave me financial freedom, if I'm very honest about it, within property. Yes, it was great buying and doing all sorts of other things and flipping properties and the like, but it was actually rent to rent that gave me that financial freedom. There's not many people I know who can say they built up over £11,000 within the first year of monthly cash flow. So that's profit. So the first year I did 11,000. That was just the first year alone, a month. I don't know what that is a year, but I know it's over 100,000. I also do deal sourcing, investment packaging, refurbs, and the occasional flip, but it's not really my main focus these days. I do a lot of speaking, so occasionally you might see me at a PIN meeting if I ever get invited to go and do some talks there. But most people know me for two things, and that's entrepreneurship, because many people that say they're entrepreneurs, you'll notice they're usually in one business and they're an entrepreneur at one thing. But actually, a true entrepreneur is someone that really can diversify in different markets. So I'm in the training, consultancy, marketing, sales, hospitality. I have tea shops. I have lots of different markets. So I think that's my main strength, really. And I think that's about it for me for now. So if we go back to Arsh, we can there'll be questions at the end. You can ask me any questions that you might want to know. So over to you, Arsh.
Okay, so Neil, the one thing that we're going to talk about tonight is rent to rent and also financial freedom. Now, financial freedom means a lot of things to a lot of different people. Now, the one thing that also, if you get property right and you can systemize it to a T, you can pretty much operate it from anywhere around the world. Is that right, Neil?
100%.
And the reason why I say that is because at the moment, as it stands, you're not actually in the UK. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so where are you and what are you doing?
Well, when you put these slides together, Ash, I was in California, but a few days later I was in Las Vegas, which is Nevada, a different state. And then I flew to Ohio, and now I'm in Kentucky. So I'm still in the US, and tomorrow I fly back to Vegas, and then I fly down to San Diego for a few days. So most of the time I do spend, at my place in California with my wife. But yeah, not today. We're just on a little bit of a trip at the moment. So what Arsh is really getting at, I think, is the fact that I have these businesses in the UK, and yet I'm very rarely there running them. And I don't really spend much time at all. And it might sound really complicated and difficult. And a lot of people who are, in 9 to 5s always ask me, how do you do that? Have you built these £1 million companies that cash flow so much money, and you're never even there, you're not doing anything? And I actually got this tip from Lord Sugar, Alan Sugar, who many of you will know from Amstrad and The Apprentice. And he actually said, I was listening to an interview one day, and he said, someone asked him, Alan, Sir Alan, how are you always never there, or you're home in Florida? And he says, because when I go into the business, people always, they work, that their productivity level goes down, and I do more damage when I'm in there when I'm not. And it really got me thinking, okay, I wonder why that is. And from that, I actually started to systemize all of my businesses, put really good managers in place, put the right people in place. But I did it in a smart way. If you look at most companies, they might have, for each company, a marketing person, a salesperson, someone that does HR, someone that does finance. What I did was, because I have different companies, I decided, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have I'm going to pay for the best. So I'm going to get the best marketing director. I'm going to pay them a good salary, but they're not just going to work within one company. They're going to work across the spectrum of companies. It was the same for sales, for HR, for the finance, for the bookkeeper. So what I've got is I've got the best people who I work hard and a lot of hours, and yet they'll actually work across different companies. So it works out very efficiently for me. Arsh, back over to you, I think.
No, that's great. Okay, so someone just said that they've just lost sound. Can you just confirm that you're okay and you can hear us clearly? Okay, so everyone said that can hear us. Okay, so if you do lose sound for whatever reason, one thing that you may want to do is that you may want to log out, log yourself back in, so that you can hear us. Now, when I was doing my slides today, I come across this, and I thought, well, this is quite interesting because I consistently always question, what can I be doing better? I think I'm pretty much at the top of my game as to where I am at the moment. I run a group of 12 companies, and everyone talks about this thing called financial freedom. Everyone wants to live the dream. And I think we're not born just to pay bills and die. Because when we look at other things of what's important to us, now just take a moment and have a think, well, what is it that is important to us? What's our reason why? So if you wouldn't mind, just take a moment and just, if you can, in the box here, just tell us what's your moment why. And also, if you can, let's quickly just go back to that slide that we're not born just to pay bills and die. What else would you like to do in your time whilst you're with us on this planet? Because once you understand where we are with regards to this, you can then start to structure your life to make sure that you don't just become a 9 to 5 machine. So just quickly going to go through here. So be with my girls more, have meaningful social life, better quality of life and financial freedom, support my son through uni, and then travel, provide low-cost housing to homeless, live with my life with a choice, retire early, help people out of poverty. So we've got some real, because normally when I ask this question about why, people will talk about holidays, people will talk about, retiring early, and a lot of it revolves around cash and having the money to do that. And having the money to do all the things. Now, I'm going to pass you back over to Neil here because he's going to talk about what our commitment is to you and how happiness can actually be helped through education. So, Neil?
Yeah, okay. Arsh really covered the main point there, so I'll just go on a little bit. But when I was younger, I always used to look at people, especially wealthy people or people who are doing better than me, and I'd think, oh, wow, these people must be better than me. They obviously know something that I don't. They're smarter than me. They're quicker than me. They're richer than me. And I came up with all these excuses. Coming from a background that wasn't a rich background, I didn't grow up in absolute poverty, but at the same time, when I look at my childhood, I remember always seeing the other kids with things like the Nike trainers or the Reeboks or whatever it was, and me having the high techs, because we didn't have a lot of money. So I always was striving. How can I become a millionaire? How can I be rich like all these other people? And the interesting thing is, once I got there, I realized that there was nothing there. Now, this might be a strange concept to some of you online who aren't there as well right now, because you'll be in that same mindset that I was in. But when I finally got there, there was nothing there. And I realized the enjoyment was actually the journey of getting there, because once I got to the finish line, it's like, okay, now what can I do? And that's why I started doing other things. So I heard some of you mention charitable events and stuff like that. And that's something I love doing now. I spend most of my time speaking to school children, going to school, speaking about enterprise, anti-bullying, and the like. So it really is an interesting concept about money. And this is, if you look at the pictures on screen there, when we did our research, this is what we found. When everyone was saying, I want money, and we asked them, especially on events and things, what do you want that money for? It didn't matter who the person was. It always came back to this one simple thing: happiness. Every time, every single person. Whether you want to help homeless people, it's because it will make you more happy. Whether you want that money, what do you want the money for? Well, to buy a nice car. Why do you want a nice car? Well, then I'll feel more confident. Okay, and what will that give you, being more confident? Well, it'll make me more comfortable and I'll feel more happy. Okay, great. I want to travel. Why do you want to travel? Well, it'll make me feel good. I feel, that I'm in the UK, I'm in England, I haven't really traveled much. I'd love to travel and see the world, but I couldn't afford it. I had to do this job. Okay, what's that going to give you? Well, that's going to make me feel better. Okay, happy? Yeah, that'll make me feel happy. So it doesn't matter which way you go. And actually, when Arsh first approached me and said, Neil, I've got, I'm doing all these rent-to-rents. I know you're doing rent-to-rents. And I really want to put a course structure together. And I know that you've been training, and basically I was a trainer. I was in the army as a trainer. And it's what I've always done. It's a gift that I've had, is actually training people. So when Arsh actually, we met up and he said, this is what I want to put together. How can we do this? What I noticed about Arsh was that he was different from a lot of the other property people out there. I've been to every single event and on every webinar and everything like that as part of my education. And what I noticed was all that people wanted was, oh, come here, let me help you, let me help you. Oh, and then people just, they just want, um, it wasn't how you would think it would be. Or if they say, oh, give me a call, oh, well, it's £500 an hour to give me a call. And I just thought it's crazy, all these people that pretend that they're your friends and actually all they want is £500 an hour to be on the phone to you, or they'll never return your calls, all that sort of business. And what I noticed about Arsh was that he'd always be there, even when we're sat there and someone calls him, he'll sit there on the phone for 10 minutes helping people out. If his family always comes first, his children come first. And they're the values that are really important to me and the people I work with. And just looking on screen now, see all these things, relationships, the family. It all comes back to happiness and actually getting there with the right people. Because anybody can, charge £10,000 for mentorships and all these sort of things. But are they the sort of people that you want to learn from? Have they got what you've currently got? And that's the questions that I always ask myself whenever I'm, listening to webinars or listening to training or meeting new business people. So back over to you, Ash.
Okay, thanks for that, Neil. Nice of you to say that. Okay, now we're going to go straight into the content of tonight's presentation. And the reason now you've got to ask yourself is why now? Why have you decided that it's that tonight is the reason, or tonight's the time where you're going to take action? And I'm going to give you a couple of reasons as to why I think tonight. First of all, let's all throw darts at public enemy number one. Now, does anyone know who this person is? And the reason why I say that is because this young man, also known as Mr. Osborne, is making it increasingly difficult for us as property investors to purchase property and try and make pretty much any profit. Now, he's got his own agenda in his little red briefcase there. His agenda is to get as many people back onto many people owning their own properties, whereas investors want to purchase properties and we want people to rent our properties. Now, problem with that is that he's brought in a new tax which is going to charge every investor a minimum 3% depending on the property value if it's not for your own home. So anything that you're looking for a buy to let, he's charging you additional 3% as an absolute minimum. And the reason why he's doing that is just putting an additional tax on there, so it becomes, yes, sorry, Christopher's asked, is that, you mean stamp duty? It is the additional stamp duty, or is the additional tax that he's putting on there specifically for investors. Now, that can be quite costly. And the reason why we start to talk about why the timing is right now is because there's going to be lots of reasons why investors will either be entering into the market or leaving the market depending on where you are in your property journey. Now, moving forward, I'm a big fan of this slide in itself because what I really like about rent to rent is the ease of entry into the market. So when you're buying a property, you'll need a 25% deposit. You'll then need a solicitor to act and do all the conveyancing. You'll need a mortgage broker. You'll need a surveyor who will go out and do all the surveying work for the mortgage company. And after you've taken into consideration all that, you're then tied to a commitment for the next 25 years to the bank. Regardless of whether the property is occupied or not, you've got to pay the bank. You can possibly take a few payment holidays here and there and everywhere, but ask yourself this question. Now, Neil spoke about financial freedom earlier on, but my vision of financial freedom isn't being tied to a bank. Now, I appreciate that, yes, we can buy a property, we can let it out, and we can all go and live on the other side of the world. But we've still got something pulling us back, and that is something called a mortgage. Now, the one thing we're going to be talking about rent to rent is that the beauty of it is that there's no mortgages involved. So you've got to ask yourself, and the one thing that you need to ask yourself is that is there actually any need to own an asset? If someone can give you a property to take on and hand you the keys pretty much the same day, does it bother you really whether you own it or not? It's just quite a strong and a powerful question, because really, I've spent a lot of time researching rent to rent before I do something or before I go into a new business activity. I pretty much almost research it to the nth degree. So I actually wrote an article after it after doing the first few deals. I said, is it worth the hype? So for those that don't know or have never seen a magazine called Your Property Network, it might be worth Googling Your Property Network and joining up to it, because it's a great magazine written by property investors for property investors. So there's both pages. Because if you look at a lot of the companies around the world today, they don't actually own a lot of assets. What they're doing is that they're leveraging on other people's assets and time. So the secret to success is to own nothing, but to control everything. So, just so that I know where everyone is on the webinar tonight and where you are in your journey, would you mind telling me who knows something about, what do you know about rent to rent? Are you completely new to it, or have you got some yourself? Or are you completely new to the whole strategy? Okay, so some people say completely new, some people say I've got, okay, so David's saying that he's got a couple. So a lot of people completely new to it. Okay, so some people also saying that they've got some knowledge. Right, that's great to know, because now I can tailor this according to where you are. So let's start from the very basics. So we talked about that it doesn't require a mortgage. We talked about it doesn't require solicitors. It doesn't require the 25% deposit. In actual fact, it only requires very little capital, which means that it's a lot easier to generate cash flow and instantly creates a business. Tonight's webinar was all about how to turn it into a business and a cash generating machine. So 3 people involved in the transaction. So there's the landlord who owns the property. Then there's you, who's going to be doing the rent to rent deal. And then there's the tenants who are hopefully going to be moving into the property. So in simple terms, you rent the property from the landlord. You may have to do a bit of light refurbishment to the property. And then you rent the property out on a room by room basis, which will give you a profit per calendar month. Now, let's use our example here. We've got in the picture here just a standard single let, and the rent on that you'd rented out is £850 a month. Now, £850 may be a good rent, but problem that you got with a single let is that I'm very risk calculated and very risk averse. Now, when this property becomes vacant, you still have to pay the mortgage regardless. And even though the property is not producing any income, you may also have to pay some other outgoings like council tax, because they won't give you a payment holiday, which means that it's costing you money, which means that it's no longer an asset, has become a liability. A liability is something that constantly costs you money. Now, remember, the one thing that you've got to take into consideration that most single lets barely wash their face over a period of a year. Once you take into consideration void periods, bad debt, maintenance, agents' fees. If each property is generating £200 a month, over a year that's going to produce around 2,400. But once you take into consideration all the costs that we've just mentioned, you're pretty much working for the property just to wash its face. Now, going back to financial freedom, that doesn't sound like financial freedom to me, because if it's not making money, how is it ever going to run as a business? Now, let's just use for this example a 4-bedroom house which has got a living room, a dining room, a kitchen, and a bathroom on the ground floor. Now, if we were to turn it into a HMO via rent to rent, potentially we could have 5 lettable rooms. So we've got 4 rooms on the first floor, and instead of having a dining room and a living room, we convert one of the rooms into an additional letting room. So it means that we've now got 5 lettable rooms, plus a living room, communal lounge, communal kitchen, communal bathroom. Everyone with me so far? If you think that I'm losing you at any point, by all means, just say stop and let's go back to it. Okay, so everyone's saying that they're still with me. Great, okay. So now here's how it works from a calculation point of view. So 5 rooms at £400 a month is £2,000 per calendar month. Now take out the rent that you've got to pay to the landlord, because obviously if you're renting the property off the landlord, you've got to pay him his rent at £850 a month. And the standard procedure is that if you're renting it out per room, you generally would pay the utility costs, which is £350. Well, on average, on a 5-bed, is around £350 a month. So taking into consideration those two costs, pretty much, so out of £2,000, you spent £1,200 on costs, which means that it's going to give you a profit of £800. Right, so Stefania is coming straight away. Now, can you have 1 bathroom for 5 people? It doesn't sound like enough. Of course you can. Now, the standards guideline says that providing that there's a communal lounge, you can have 1 bathroom and 1 kitchen per 5 people. So far, everyone's with me. Now, that's pretty much how a rent-to-rent operates. So you can pretty much make £800 a month. Now, if you've taken the property off the landlord, let's say for 5 years, I'll give you a rough indication that £800 a month, times that by 12 months, gives you 9,600. Times that by 5 years, that property is going to make you £48,000 worth of cash flow. For a property that you don't own, you potentially have no intention of owning, and you're using for your own gain. Now, Mary's coming with a question straight away. Will that convert the house to a HMO? If so, will it need a license? Now, there's 2 different types of categories here, Mary. We've got licensed and unlicensed HMOs. Now, just so that we know, and everyone's online, I appreciate that you're quite new to this. So, any property that is 2-story is unlicensed. It only becomes a licensed HMO when there's 5 or more tenants living in the property over 3 or more floors. So if you've got 20 tenants living on 2 floors, it's unlicensed. The moment it has 5 or more tenants on 3 or more floors, it becomes licensable. So just to get that out of the way, because it's a great question. So I'm going to now pass you back over to Neil, because it's great that we're talking about this strategy, but the one thing we need to understand is, how do we find these properties? Because, generally, are people going to throw their keys at us? How do we find them? How do we put it across to the landlord that we're going to be the best person to look after their property? So Neil, are you there?
Yep, got you. Funny you should say that, Arsh, because I actually did have a landlord once throw his keys at me within 20 minutes of the meeting. So I thought that was really funny. He's just like, oh, okay, here, take the keys. I just hit him so hard with all the marketing, and eventually by the time we met and he wasn't sure about it, I just gave him every benefit, looked at all the problems he'd had, and he went, oh, okay, here, take the keys. So the strategies do work if you just follow the processes properly that we'll show you. Okay, so finding the landlords is the most difficult part. So I've spoken to a lot of people who say, I do rent to rent, and I've been doing it for years, and I say, oh wow, where are you up to now? You must have a lot of houses. Oh no, I've got 1 house, 2 houses, or 3 houses. And a lot of times this is the biggest problems. People just say, I don't understand how to find the landlords, how to get the houses. Now, there's 2 parts to answer this. The second part can't be covered in an hour webinar. It takes a few hours, which is the sales and the psychological process, which involves all sorts of psychology models, from Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the Dale Edgar's cone of learning. There's so much involved in it to actually convert someone every single time that we don't have time for that. But what I can do is go on to actually how to get the landlords into your, well, in marketing we would say, into your funnel. So what that means is actually the first time you contact them or when you're having a meeting with them. So that's the stage that we can cover right now. So the first one then, you can see on screen there's some adverts there. A lot of people don't understand advertising. They don't really get it. Now, advertising is a science. It's not an art form, and it's not super complex, but it's a science, and it takes a long time to learn this. I've been doing it for a long time, and even myself, I'm not an expert in advertising. I do quite well from it, but I'm definitely not the top 1% on the planet advertisers. So I'll go through a few tips that have made me a lot of money over the years and actually bring in a lot of the landlords for me. So the first one is, when it comes to advertising, you want to do a longer run. So that's what they'll call in the advertising industry a run, which means not just one advert once. You want to do one advert over a period of time. So it might be over a period of weeks or over a period of months or even years. A lot of companies will do it over years, but of course they'll change up the campaign. Now, what I did when I was testing this for the rent-to-rent market was that I mainly tested different sizes. I went from doing one big page, a double page spread. I did the credit card size. I did the really small 2x2 column sizes. And here were the findings that it took about 6 months because it takes a while, but here are the findings. What you can see on screen right there are about the best size for an advert in terms of the ROI, return on investment, on your capital invested. So for depending on where you live, now London is a bubble in itself, so I won't cover that, but if you live anywhere outside of London, to put an advert like this, you're probably going to spend anywhere from 20 to 50 pounds for a one run advert. Now, if you negotiate it down with a longer run, you can get it from a lot lower. So for me, something like this will cost me £14 to put one of these squares in a newspaper in the property section and to run it for maybe 8 weeks to do a test. Now, you want to run it for 8 weeks because there's a universal law that has been around forever that says it takes 7 times for someone to see something and finally take action on it. So that action could be not interested, doesn't apply to me, but that is still an action. But the hope is that the landlord that sees it, that has a property, eventually they'll see it and they'll say, okay, I've seen it enough times now. Do I want to make this call or not? And the other great thing is, a lot of time these landlords will cut this out. They'll cut it out of the paper and they'll put it in a drawer and they'll save it for a future date when a family moves out of one of their properties, and then they'll call you to find out more about this. The other thing they might do is they might call you straight away and say, look, I don't have anything right now, but in the future when my tenant moves out, I'd be very interested in doing this with you. So there's lots of different schools of thought on this. So that's the main thing with an advert in terms of the run and the costing and things. You want to do it over a longer period. Now the other option is you go to the other extreme. So there isn't really a middle ground for this. The other extreme is you take out a full page or a double page editorial. So it's called an editorial. And what that means is it looks like a newspaper article, but it's actually not. It's an advert. So you pay for the newspaper to come out, or the magazine, whoever it is, to do an advert and write a story on your company and then get it published. Now this is a lot more money. It might cost you a few £1,000s depending on the newspaper. But what that will do is it will give you a greater spread straight away. So more of the right target market will see that very quickly, and it'll be very high impact. So you've really got two schools of thought on it. Now, if I were in your position where I was just starting, I would start with the adverts on screen. So just very small, simple, and run them all the time. Now, in terms of the advert itself, again, it's a science. And it's a very simple formula, so you don't need to overcomplicate things. I've seen a lot of property trainers teaching adverts, and I just think, what are these people teaching? They're obviously not doing this themselves, because if they were, they would know that these things don't work. There's a lot of things out there in the market that I'm sure a lot of you have tested and then gone, it didn't work. And that's because a lot of people teaching it don't test it themselves. They might see it from someone else, and all this bad material just gets recycled. So everything I'm going to tell you, I've actually tested and tried myself, and I know it works for a fact. So here's the formula. Top line is your H1, so H1, and that's your headline. So that's a big, bold headline. Now you can do that in any color you want, but usually black works the best, or a red. So I use a red in most of mine and make that bold. And that a headline can be something like "Attention landlords." All right, so that's an example for you. Your H2 tag, so that's your second headline, will be something else, such as here's a common one that I run. Are you still paying letting agent fees? Question mark, exclamation mark. And so what have I done? Firstly, I've called their attention. If I'm a landlord and it says "Attention landlords," I'm going to read it. Are you still paying letting agent fees? I'm asking a question now. So it's attention grabber, question. Yes, I am paying letting agent fees, actually. I wonder what this advert's about. And then I hit them with bullet points. So the bullet points are the benefits. Now, you don't need to do a lot here, but in general, this is where copywriting comes in, which is a very, very advanced science as well. I've only got about 5 years experience in copywriting, so again, I'm not a guru, but the school of thought really in copywriting is you either do a lot of bullets or you only do a few bullets. So you might do 3, 4, or 5 bullet points, and these are benefits. So let's just think of the benefits of rent to rent. Free refurbishment on the house, no management fee, we take care of all the tenant issues. So you see 3 things straight away there are benefits to the landlord. So you've got to make it clear to that landlord what the benefit is. Free refurbishment, oh, that's going to add value to my property. We deal with tenant issues. Oh, okay, I won't get these late night phone calls anymore. No management fees. Oh, more money. Okay, so you've got to make it clear what the benefits are. And then at the end, you want to have a call to action. So something along the lines of call now, or call Neil on, and then the phone number. Okay, so that is really the basis of an advert. So many people that I see, and I see all these adverts all the time, especially property sources and people, they put these really complex adverts up, and I know for a fact, even though they come on webinars and say, oh, getting all these leads, I'm doing all this, oh, I'm a millionaire, I know for a fact they can't be with adverts like that, because it just doesn't make sense. People are very similar in their thought processes, and we follow very similar patterns in terms of thought. That's why advertisers are so good at getting us to buy things. So Arsh, should we go on to the next slide? Okay, direct mail is a dying art. I don't quite know why it died so much, but I think what probably happened, looking at my thought process, is when the internet was born, a lot of people said, oh, this is it, the internet, this is how we're going to reach people. And there were some people that made millions, absolute millions in, at the start of the internet. And a lot of other marketers probably saw that and said, right, this is it then. It's email, it's online marketing, the future. And what that did was, it took the majority of marketers away from direct mail and put them all on the internet. So now what you have is this huge opportunity in direct mail and not much opportunity on the internet. So I do hardly any online marketing. I'd say probably 5% of all my marketing across all my companies is online. The rest is offline. And it surprised a lot of people, especially when I talk at marketing conferences, and they say, "What? I don't get it. Why are you doing that?" And it's really simple. If you look at some of the top investors, Warren Buffett and other people like that, they say when everyone gets greedy, you want to be cautious. So we can apply that straight away to the internet. Everyone going online, be cautious. And he said, when everyone's being cautious, that's when you want to be greedy. So I apply that to direct marketing. Everyone's being cautious, no one's really doing it. That's where you want to be greedy. So that's why I've invested all my marketing budget into direct marketing. And when I did that, the responses were just unbelievable, because you don't see a lot of this anymore. Everyone's doing email and focusing on there, and it's just a sea of lost communications. So what do I do then? How do I apply this to finding and generating leads? Well, the first thing is I'll walk around, and I don't do this myself now, I have staff that do it, and I'll look at any board that says "to let" on the street that are in my target area, any board at all. So they'll walk around, they'll make a note of that address, and they'll then give that to the admin person, and then they go on the land registry portal. So you want to make a note of that, land registry, and you want to do a title search. Now, when you do that title search, and it costs £3, that search will bring up everything you want to know about that house. Who the owner is, does he live there, what sort of mortgage it is, how much is on the mortgage, when the property was bought, how much they bought it for. Everything is on there. Now, a question that usually comes up is, why would I spend £3? That's a lot of money. And it's really funny, because I remember once someone challenged me about spending that money when they can print off leaflets, and it was another property trainer. Oh, I can print off 10,000 leaflets and all the rest of it. And the fact is, leaflets don't usually work, especially with rent to rent. If you ever hear people saying, oh, I drop all these leaflets on the houses and in my target area, and I get all these deals, you know they're not telling you the truth. And here's why. Apply common sense here. If you're a landlord and you've got, let's say, 10 houses, would you be living in the area where your houses are? Is very, very unlikely. I've got a portfolio, I've got a rent-to-rent portfolio. I don't live anywhere near my houses. My house is of a better quality than the houses I rent out. It's pretty common sense. It would go against human nature to live in a worse house than what you're renting out to someone else. Just wouldn't really make much sense. So you've got to take a lot of things with a pinch of salt, and remember, test everything. So once you've got that title, you've now got their address. You then take a letter, and Arsh and I have a template letter which I've written myself. It's copywritten, psychology, and we send that to the landlord. When the landlord gets that letter, it's very clear what we're offering and what they need to do. So they just make that phone call. So again, a huge mistake people make here is they give too much information. The idea of sending that letter isn't to get a deal. That's not the point of it at all. The idea of that letter is to get a phone call. The idea of that phone call is to get a meeting. The idea of that meeting is to get a deal. So you see, it's not as simple as it appears, and how a lot of people will tell you. Think of it like a ladder or a set of stairs. You take one step at a time. You don't jump from the bottom to the top. That doesn't make sense. I just apply logic to everything, really. So once I've sent that letter, the other thing you want to be clear on is that I don't just send a letter through the post. I put a first-class stamp on it so they know it's important, and I send it in a coloured envelope, or I'll put it in a priority envelope. So what happens is, even if they don't receive that straight away, whoever sees it knows that, oh, it's either a birthday card or it's a priority letter, and they'll get that letter to that landlord. Because another problem is with, say you drop a leaflet, that landlord's never going to get that leaflet. The tenants just grab it and they throw it in the bin. What tenant in their right mind, just to discredit this even further, is going to pick up that leaflet and say, oh, here we go, Mr. Landlord, this just came through saying, basically, if you were to evict us, you could get this really good deal. Why don't you do that? Why don't you kick us out of our house? No one's going to do that. It just doesn't make any sense. So you send your letters, and then once they open that letter, they're going to give you a phone call, because the letter is set out in such a simple way. And again, this letter's been tested, tweaked, changed, and we haven't changed it now in a long time. So let's go on to the next slide, Arsh. Okay, now this is a strategy I stumbled upon completely by accident. And one day, I was just having a chat with some of my tradesmen, as I do, project management and the like. And I can't remember if it was the builder or the plumber, but they both brought me deals. What happened was, was having this conversation, I was telling them about this new strategy, and a lot of tradesmen were really fascinated by this and thought, what is this new strategy? What is it you're doing? And the more I explained it, they said, oh, that's really clever. They were all sort of fascinated by it because they hadn't heard of it before. And they all wanted to know, okay, well, what would happen if we brought you, a property or something? Would you do this? And I'd say, look, I'll give you £200 cash or £250 cash. Now, that might not sound like a lot of money, but to a tradesman, receiving that sort of money in cash is a big deal, especially because they don't have to declare it. It goes straight in their pocket, and that's it. It's cash in their pocket for doing nothing except referring someone to someone else. So I then started to build up this network of tradespeople, and I even went to the extent of, which is a little bit cheeky, if I had a job on, I would call up 3 or 4 different tradesmen, 3 or 4 different plumbers from the phone book, or I'd have someone in the office do it, and they'd all come out separately to price up for the job. Now, they're there because they want your business, and as soon as you tell them, oh, actually I have a big portfolio of properties, they really want your business now. They are going to jump through hoops for you. They want to be your best friend. Now, from that, then wanting to be my best friend, we pitch them. Oh, actually, we do this, we do that. We, rent to rent. Have you heard of this? Do you know anyone that might be interested? We pay you some cash. And what do you think they said? Obviously, they were really interested and they were on board. Now, what I tended to do then was anyone that did bring me a deal, I would add them into the directory of tradesmen that we would use, because you've got to reciprocate. Yes, I'm giving them cash, but it's a relationship. You want to use them for work. If they're bringing you, it just keeps going and going and going and gets stronger all the time. So that's how you build up your sort of database of tradesmen. Now, the way you don't do it, because I know someone else took my strategy and tried to teach it, and it got back to me, and I just thought it was so funny. And what this man was saying was, okay, what you want to do is you want to just phone all these tradesmen from the phone book, just get them all around at once, and then you just want to pitch them. But you can send all these text messages out as well, text marketing, but you just want to pitch them all, get them all around. And I thought that was quite amusing, because I know straight away what's going to happen. Tradesmen are busy people. They go out for jobs. They don't want to go out and hear you pitching them on some sort of something they don't even know what it is. So that's why you want to do it the way I explained it in the first place. Don't just call them up and pitch them over the phone and stuff like that, because they're going to get really annoyed with you. All right, Arsh, is that it for the slides?
No, we've got a long way to go. Yeah.
Okay, well, there's my bit done for this minute, I think. Okay, I'll let you pass. Take over.
Okay, so like Neil's just give you 3 really good tips as to how to find rent-to-rent deals. But when we look at the strategy, Neil's also touched on the fact that there are certain skills that are required. There are certain skills that are required, which the first one being negotiation and the ability to create a win-win-win scenario. Now, there's got to be 3 wins in there, because there's a landlord who owns a property, there's you, and there's the tenant. Everyone seems to have to win from the scenario. There's sales, there's communication, but if you think about it, these are all things that you use in everyday life. Now, just for those online that have got a family, and I've got 2 very small daughters, so 2 very young daughters, and I feel like I'm having to consistently negotiate with her every day. Dad, can I watch TV? Now, if I was a real pushover, I could say, yeah, why not? You can watch TV, but I'll have to negotiate. Oh no, instead of that, why don't we read a book? Or why don't we go out and play outside? And we're consistently looking at a different way. So we're consistently looking at, and we're always practicing our negotiation tactics. So if you think about it, you've got to look at your skill set now and think, well, out of those, which one have you got, or have you got all of them? Because the reason why I ask is that you need to be a strong negotiator. Around 25 to 40% of our rent-to-rent workshop attendees already have 2 or 3 rent-to-rental properties, and they've already done another rent-to-rent course. And the reason why I'm saying this is because if you're not a strong negotiator, how are you going to close a deal? Now, just going back to the scenario now you could be a lead generator and you could get as many deals and you could get 20 or 30 deals in, but if you don't know how to close them, how would it ever work? And the reason why we say this, and I'm just going to very briefly mention this, is that we do run a 2-day workshop. And if you were to approach us all throughout the year, we run them approximately 3 times a year. And you could buy them for approximately £2,000 plus a VAT. And we would look at stuff like identifying the goldmine area, how to get in front of a large amount of landlords, and how to calculate the numbers so that you don't get caught short, as well as look at the psychology as to how to seal the deal with the landlord, how to get a letter so that when they pick it up, they will be consistently calling you to do a deal. So like I said, that's normally a workshop that we generally run for approximately £2,000 plus VAT. But there are other skills that are required. Now, when you're looking for a new strategy and you want to do something, we've all identified that we've got a reason why we're doing this. But we also need, in order to meet that why, we also need the hunger and the desire to do the deal and find the deals, find the leads. We need focus, because if you're pretty much like a mini rocket and you go off in all different directions all the time, how will it ever work? How will you ever get any form of focus? Which means that you've got to have some discipline. You've got to have communication skills so that when you're sitting in front of the landlord, he's going to be able to understand who you are, what you're about, but more importantly, understand, are you the right person to take on his property? You're definitely going to need internal motivation. If you notice, we've put that twice in this slide. And the reason why we do that is purely because there are going to be times where you're going to get knockbacks. There are going to be some landlords that say, unfortunately, Mr. Smith, you seem like a lovely lad, but unfortunately, this doesn't seem right for me. But it's then the internal motivation which will pick you back up to get you back out there. And this is where also enthusiasm and dedication and consistency, as well as self-direction, will get you to your end goal. And the reason why we've put these up there today is because these are really important. And this doesn't just happen just with rent to rent. This means in business in general. So once you've got these skills and once you've identified where you are in your skill set, you can understand what you're good at and what you need to outsource. But more importantly, the most important skill set that I think you must have, or the most important trait that you must have, is passion. Because now just imagine this. Just imagine you go out and meet a landlord now, and if he doesn't share your passion, or if he doesn't see that you're passionate about this and you're going to be able to make this work, how is he ever going to hand this property over to you? Remember, a property is quite a large and sizable amount of an asset, going into tens or hundreds of thousands of pounds. You need to show so much passion that you can do it. You're going to guarantee the landlord the rent for 3, 5 or 7 years, and you're going to look after that person's asset, and in return you're going to make some money from it as well, and they're going to have peace and quiet, enjoyment and freedom, which is basically what you're exchanging. You're giving them time for their convenience. Now, remember, I said negotiation is the key, and to be successful in rent to rent, you must be a strong negotiator, because every time you go out to meet a landlord and a property, there is going to be a negotiation. He's obviously going to want as much as he can get for the property. You're going to want to pay as little as you can for the property. And now here's here's where negotiation comes into it, because the script is the key. If you don't know what you're saying to these people, how are they ever going to get you on? How are you ever going to get them onto your terms? So there, we've got a script which is pretty much a number of buzzwords which should trigger a few emotions with the landlord, who will then all allow you to bring the property on board. And here's the key. Now, this for me is the strongest point of all. The break-even point. At what point does this property stop making money? Or what property do you need? Or what point does this property start making money? Because obviously every property has a break-even point, taking into consideration the costs, taking into consideration the rent, taking into consideration all the utilities. How many rooms does it need to occupy to break even? How many months will it take to recoup the initial investment? Now, I've got all these things listed on what I call a cash flow calculator, and I've got it to a point where I can calculate pretty much telling me how many months it's going to take me to get my money back, how many rooms is going to require to be occupied in order for it to be making money, and also generating so many more different calculations. Now, question someone's asked on the webinar, now, where can we find these deals? Or where does this strategy work? Now, here's the beauty of it. It's because you don't physically have to buy the property. You could do this absolutely anywhere. All you need really is a power team. And when we say a power team, if you're not intending on letting the property yourself, you need just to have a very strong letting agent who's going to keep the property occupied all the time, every time. You need good maintenance people, which Neil spoke about previously. Build the right rapport with them from day one, and they will not only do the work to your property, they will continuously be bringing you leads, because the reason they will do that is the more properties they get you, the more work you will be giving them in return. And they're the two key people. And obviously you need to make sure there's a demand for your property. So it can work pretty much nationwide. And we've trained people all over the country who are now doing this. And now I'm going to play a little game with you here. So we had one gentleman come on our workshop in February 2015. His name is JC. And when I met him, he's quite an impressionable young man. And within a year, how many properties do you think he's taken on? Now, I know Derek's going to know this because Derek was also on the workshop. How many properties do you think he's taken on from February 2015 to April 2016? Wow, Alan, if he's taken on your number, he's done really well. So going through. Okay, so there's some quite optimistic people online tonight. So some people saying 50 properties. Now remember, when we're saying how many properties to take on, remember in this period of time, he's got to take them on, he's got to possibly get them up to scratch and tenant them. Now he can definitely not take on 250 properties, but on a more realistic figure, he's now on his 21st property. So quite a few, quite close. Some people are saying 50. And to take on 50 properties in 12 months is a big order. It's a tall order. So it's taken on approximately between 1 and 2 a month. And I'm just going to quickly read one of the questions. Would you, as a person operating a rent-to-rent property, take on the responsibility of the electrical testing and the boiler safety certificates? Now, great question, Charlie. And the reason why I decided to read your question out straight away is because, remember what we said here? Negotiation is the key. There's nothing set in stone to say that you have to take the responsibility of the boiler or the electrical items in the property. It all comes down to the negotiation that you've got with the landlord. Now, when you buy a property, there is no negotiation with the mortgage company. It is a case of, here's your mortgage, here's how much it is a month, pay it or we'll repossess you. And it really is as simple as that. Now, with rent to rent, the beauty of it is that you can actually negotiate what the landlord will be responsible for and what you will be responsible for to create the win-win scenario there. Because it's got to work for you and it's got to work for them. And that also applies to maintenance as well. So in that respect, there's some properties that I've taken on where I'm responsible for internal maintenance, the landlord's responsible for the boiler. There's some properties that I've taken on where I'm responsible for everything internally and the landlord's responsible for the external structure. It all comes down to, remember, it's got to be a scenario where it works both ways. And this is why I say this strategy is absolutely perfect for that. So I'm going to briefly talk about a workshop that both Neil and I are working on. The reason why we're saying that is because we've got approximately 5 spaces left on it, and it's the 7th and 8th of May. And one thing that we're doing tonight is that we're running a rent-to-rent training on the 7th and 8th of May. And on the Saturday, we predominantly talk about rent-to-rent, so how to identify and dominate your gold mine area, how to get in front of a large amount of landlords, how to create a high-end finish for low cost. Because in all of our HMOs, we don't tend to spend anything more than £2,000 per property at the absolute max. And how to become legally compliant and how to calculate the numbers by using the spreadsheets that we provide you. But more importantly, Neil will be showing you exactly how to get to the 11k per calendar month mark within a year. Now that sounds all great, but then on the Sunday, in addition to this, we also do a whole day on negotiation training, because remember what I said, negotiation is the key. If you don't know how to negotiate the deal, unfortunately, there's no point generating the leads because no one will take you up on your offer. So we'll be looking at the buying patterns and the sales psychology, the exact process for taking on a prospective landlord, from the first letter right down to the phone call to a deal. Now, from time to time, you're going to get some objections or people are going to ask questions. So you need to know how to overcome those objections. So, but why should I give my property to you? Isn't it better if I do it this way? Well, in actual fact, I'll say to them, well, yes, it is better to do it this way because of this, this, and this. And if you come back to them with a positive response, they're going to think, well, in actual fact, this guy's a real deal and he can actually do it. And they'll give you the property and you'll perform live interactions on the day and you'll learn Neil's relationship selling model. So here's one of the courses that we ran previously. In actual fact, that's actually JC who came on one of the days just to talk to some of our other delegates. I'm going to see if I can get him. I'm going to see if I can get him out to one of our workshops as well. So here's some of the people that have been on. So we've taught quite a few people this strategy over the last year. So here's everyone that's been on some of our workshops. And all these people have gone off and really excelled in rent to rent. Now, some people have got 3 or 4 properties. Now, exceptional people like JC gone off and done 21 properties. Now, there's another lady called Deborah who actually has taken on 32 properties, all within a year. Because what the training will actually allow you to become is pretty much like a lead magnet, a deal magnet. And what we will be doing is showing you how to build lasting relationships and investors so that they become your repeat customers for your deals. Every time they buy a property, they're not going to want to manage it themselves. They're going to hand it directly to you. And what also we're going to be showing you is how Neil's credit card size classified advert, which costs around £57, will get you enough deals and get you in contact with enough cash investors to sell houses and deals to for the rest of the year. But here's a key actual fact, because negotiation is a key, but the second most important thing is the documentation. Now, if you go off and you just try and put the landlord on an AST, guess what? You're breaking the law. In actual fact, what you need is a robust management contract. And as part of the workshop, we actually give you all the documents required to enable to go out and do this the very next day. We give you them all in a digital format so that you can do this. So you also get my cash flow calculator. And you can have it all for a very low $995 for the whole weekend. Remember, I've only got 5 spaces on this workshop, so it is very low because we did actually do we have actually taken a lot of bookings, and we've only got 5 seats left. What's the best way of describing this? Because we've taught so many people and we know this system works, I'm actually willing to give you a money back guarantee. So for whatever reason at all, if you're not satisfied at the end of day one, all you got to do is send me an email, let me know that you'd like to leave, and I'll personally give you your money back or give you a complete refund. No questions asked, no forms to fill in, no problems at all. All I ask is that you fully attend, fully participate, and that you have all the tools that we'll give you all the tools that you need to succeed. And remember when it says, earlier we talked about why. Now there's 2 things that we can do. We can either sit here and we can talk about all the things that you could possibly doing, or we could start to talk about what you need to do to get yourself there. And it's $995 for the weekend, and you can book simply by following the link below, which is arshilahi.com/R2RMC. MC stands for Masterclass, so the Rent to Rent Masterclass. Now, Paul's asked, he says, are you running any other dates because I'm currently on holiday? Sorry, he'll be on holiday then. Unfortunately, Paul, we haven't got any dates set for the next one yet until we get this one pretty much done with straight away. We may be running one in July, but we're not 100% sure yet. The one thing that we also do is we also live stream the event for those that can't make it, and we also record the event so that should you be unable to attend, we can actually send you the recording of the whole weekend as well. Neil, sorry, are you online?
Yeah, I was just about to say, Ash, I think we've only got 3 seats left for the July workshop, because that'll be my last one that I can do this year. Even this one that is coming up in a couple of weeks, I'm flying back to the UK for the workshop. So it is going to be quite tight on courses this year. So Arsh, if you just let people know how many seats we have got. I know it's 5 for this one. I think the next one's only 3 left. So that my only advice there would be to just speak to Arsh to secure that seat. Because the worst thing for me is when I get emails all the time, or calls or messages saying, oh, you said there was seats left and now I've come to book on. Yeah, you're booking on a month later. The seats go really quickly. So, I just like to get that caveat out there to avoid all these messages I always get saying, the course is full, etc. Yeah.
Okay, so the live streaming is the same cost as attending in person, because obviously the value is all in the documents that you're going to be getting. So you're going to get the management contract, you're going to be getting all the documents, you're going to be getting the recordings. So as well as, the key to all this is a management contract, because it's cost Neil and I many thousands of pounds to get the robust documentation in place so that you don't have to go through it, suffer any pitfalls in the contract. And the reason why we want to do this is because we want to become part of the exceptional individuals who have gone out and turned into rent-to-rent specialists in the UK. Now, we've got exceptional individuals like JC, Susie, Deborah, who've all gone out and done this and made a massive living from this. So here's what you're going to be getting. So you're going to be getting the rent-to-rent training day. You're going to be getting the sales training day, which is the negotiations day. You're going to be getting the management contract. You're going to be getting the legal documents, the template letters, and the adverts. The key to success, the buffet meal on the day, the membership to the rent-to-rent secret group, the one-on-one call with Neil after the course. I did forget to mention that in actual fact, the learning doesn't stop just after the workshop, because we've got a secret Facebook group which we will add you into, so the learning continues, so that you've got lifetime access to all the other course attendees, as well as to me and Neil via the social media forum. So there's well over £10,000 worth of benefits there, and it's going to be held at the Jury's Inn on Broad Street in Birmingham, and that's on the 7th and 8th of May. It's a really easy and accessible location. It's right off it's 5-minute walk from the Grand Central train station, so it's very accessible for both parts of the country. And on Saturday evening, we will have like a mini Saturday evening social. The last workshop I did at the Jury's Inn, we all went to Pizza Express, which is just around the corner. We had quite a good laugh afterwards as well, so it's not all business. And here's what we're going to throw in. If you book tonight, and will allow you to bring a business partner for free. That's right, you're going to get 2 for the price of 1. But that offer expires at midnight tonight. So the live stream is the same price, just for those that are asking. So this live stream is $995, attending in person is $995, and you will be getting all the documentation via email to a digital link pretty much straight away. And we've put the link there. And the reason why we do this, and the reason why Neil and I do this, is because we like to see people excel. We like to see people meet their financial requirements. Now, just take a moment and think there now. From earlier, you said that you wanted to get involved in rent-to-rent. Now, have a think of what's your current commitment, how much you require to live on a year. Now, working on the basis that a HMO will produce anywhere between £500 to £1,000 a month, how many properties do you actually need to actually survive? Or not survive, but to live off. So if your average wage was 24 grand, technically speaking, you need 2 HMOs. And that would cover your outgoings. And to manage 2 HMOs would take you the best part of, I'd say, no longer than an hour a week. What are you going to do with the rest of the other 39 hours that you are usually working? Could you be generating other deals? Could you be generating more rent-to-rents? So the reason why I ask that is because this gives you freedom. Freedom will give you access to everything else that you want to achieve, to spend more time with your family. So what we normally do as well, I'm going to give you access to, well, Neil's currently abroad, so I haven't put his mobile number on there. So you can find him on Facebook, Skype and LinkedIn, as well as myself. Now, if you've got any further questions, by all means, you're more than welcome to give me a call after the webinar for a short while. You've got my personal mobile number there. So we've got nothing to hide, because we're happy to have a chat with you if you want to have a quick chat. You can find me on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter and Facebook. Now, what we'll do is someone's put, can you show us how the link works? So if you copy the link and you go, actually, let's just see how this works. So I've copied it. So that should pretty much take you to a page there. And all you've got to do is press on the yellow tab, and that will take you to a secure payment page. So yeah, the link does work for the person that asked. Now, someone said, can I show them the link? And whilst I'm doing that, I will actually go through some of the questions now. So let's quickly go through some of the questions that were asked. So other ads are approximately 2 inch by 2 inch. They are. You've got to work on the basis of approximately a credit card style advertisement. Going through, here we go. So we've talked about maintenance there. Okay. So are rent-to-rents usually furnished or unfurnished? All depends. And Anya, I hope I've pronounced that correct, is that it all depends on you and your individual and your target market. Now, generally, if you're renting it out by room and your market and your demographic is the professional market, they would want or they would expect the property to be fully furnished. Now, I've always rented out all my properties unfurnished, and they seem to still let. But it all comes down to you and what your demographic is requesting and your location. So I hope that helps. Another person said that they're going to be out of the country for that workshop. Again, a couple of options. According to Neil, we may be running one in July. So if you'd like to come on and you would like to come on to the July one, the one thing that you can do is, in actual fact, reserve your space tonight and get the 2-for-1 offer, and we can put you onto the next course. In this special comments box, what you may need to put is that we can't attend we can't attend the May event, but we will come to the next one in July. So what is the period of the tenant contract? When we say the tenant contract, I'm assuming we're talking about the people that actually live in the property. Generally, you should offer a 6-month AST, because unless you're offering a service like offering almost like a B&B, which is a different planning class, it should be a 6-month AST. I hope that helps, Robert. Okay, I'm just going to quickly have a quick look at my diary, because Neil's asked a question. So the rent to rent potentially could be the 2nd and 3rd of July. Neil's just sent me a message saying that he could do the 2nd and 3rd of July. So if you are interested and you can't make the one in May, then it is going to be the 2nd and 3rd of July, and you can get the 2-for-1 offer, providing that you book this evening and in the special comments box saying that you can attend the July one. So Tanya's come up with a question. What would I realistically need to invest to start rent to rent if I lose a tenant and can't find another to cover the rent? Right. The beauty of it, Tanya, is I would always suggest that someone has let's say a couple of £1,000 just as a reserve. The reason why I say that is when you take a property on, you're going to need to potentially you're going to need to furnish it ready for individual tenants. Other thing to take into consideration is that if you lose one tenant, that property should still be cash flowing. You've got to lose 2 tenants in order for it to pretty much break even. The general consensus is that the first 3 rooms operate as the operating costs, so that will be the rent, the utilities in it, any outgoings. The 4th and 5th room are purely profit. That's the standard assumption on HMOs. Okay, so Robert has asked, is it an AST or commercial contract? Are we talking about between me and the landlord, or are we talking about between me and my tenants? Because I offer my tenants an AST. What we've got between me and the landlord is a management contract. So I hope that helps. So between me and the tenant is an AST. Okay, so Annie's asked, can we offer one-year ASTs to tenants to make it a bit more stable? Yes, you can offer a 1-year tenant. You've got to make sure that the tenant can afford the rent, and yes, you can offer 1-year ASTs to tenants to make it a bit more stable. The more that you can do that, you can offer 2-year tenancies. So it all comes down to what's right for you. So, are there any other questions? I'm just quickly going through them. I've answered pretty much everything that I've got so far. I think we've pretty much answered all of them. Okay, what I will do, I'll keep my phone on for the next 20 minutes or half an hour. And if you would like to have a quick chat with me, you're more than welcome to give me a call on my mobile. And let's see what we can do. Remember, the 2 for 1 offer ends at midnight tonight. So if you would like to take advantage of it, now's your time. Because once you understand that there's no better time to get involved in property than right now. The banks are closing in, the government's closing in, trying to stop restricting you from buying property. Now, all you've got to do is look for an alternative strategy, and that's what Rent to Rent can offer you. So if you would like to have a chat, you're more than welcome to give me a call. And on that note, I'd like to say thank you very much for all your time. It's been a pleasure speaking to you all. Neil, are you still online?
Yep, I'm here, Ash.
Okay, Neil, if you'd like to say a quick good night, and we'll speak to, no doubt,
Yeah.
quite a few of these people on the event.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. I hope I was able to give you some value tonight. Well, Arsh and I together, and yeah, really looking forward to seeing some of you in May time, and a couple of others in July. Just I have checked, we have got 3 seats on that one, and it probably will be the last one of the year. Looking at the schedule now, so if you can get on one of these. You know, you're going to do yourself such a big favor in life, and get yourself to those goals a lot quicker. So that's it from me, really. And if you've got anything you want to ask me, you saw my Facebook details and things like that. I usually sort of log in once a day, so just send me a message. All right, thanks a lot then. Thank you.
Take care, guys. Good night. God bless. Speak to you soon. Bye bye.